mentioning that the marine letter by Ward has been mentioned in the treaty zero drafts for around 20 times, but high mountain plastic pollution did not even mentioned for once. So that's time for, and the request here to get youth from all region, including high land and lowland, should come together to raise this issue of high mountain plastic pollution needs to be mentioned in the treaty. That's a very crucial thing. And indeed, we have now the chance to get the revised zero draft text incorporating what has been done in INC3, and then from December 31st until the 20th of April, where the start of the INC4, then we would have time to also work on that and try how we can address all of the missing elements or emphasize on more elements. All right, so moving forward now, very briefly before we would have the platform for like some sort of open floor to discuss the documents and try to do some preparation. I see that we would be having around less than 2 hours, like 1 hour and 45 minutes to have our discussions on the working documents and to get the benefit of this platform to also finalize the preparation. Very quickly, there are some sort of 3 different documents that we can find. Like we have the working documents, we have inf documents, information documents, and then we have other documents and submissions. So mainly to highlight the main differences in a very quick way, would say that working documents is some sort of documents that are being negotiated, informed by inf documents that the Secretariat put together from different resources, utilizing the existing panels, sensitizing the submissions, and then getting into the negotiations, negotiating the working documents with the support of inf documents. And then we have the submissions. So if you are interested to get a certain perspective or certain view for a certain member state or stakeholder organization, then you can jump into their submission and get more. So right now I would go with you to the websites. As you can see, this is the website for the second session, the week 2. And then there's the overview details. If you go to the pre-session documents, you will see the different 2 types of information of documents that I mentioned. The 2 categories, the working documents, which again are the documents that be negotiated, available in the 6 UN language, the official languages of the UN, and then the inf documents that are informing. So what we can see is that the working document 1, like week 2.2/1, is the provisional agenda that was adopted at the meeting in Bangkok, and then we have the draft annotated agenda to be considered and adopted, and then we have the skeleton outline for proposals that's including 4 main elements, including the scope, objectives, including the institutional arrangements, intersessional work, and also the annex. So we also have the scope and objective function and operating principles, working documents, relationships with relevant key stakeholders, which is very important working documents for us. And as we speak now, we have our colleagues in the plenary following the informal consultation in this specific topic. They will join us later, and hopefully we would have the time to get the updates of what's going on. We will have overview of work-related processes and procedures, and then last but not least, the 7th working documents is update from the Secretariat on work undertaken in the period between the 1st and 2nd budget expenditures and the provisional work plan that's more into this intersessional period. So as you can see, it's very crucial that we will have the time now to go through them and read them, try to somehow have an overview of what's happening in depth. We can also start to gather and see how we can align ourselves with what's going to be negotiated. Moving forward are the inf documents, and these 11 documents are very crucial. And as I mentioned, they're informing the negotiations, utilizing the time, getting the information needed, putting together. A lot of efforts have been put by the Secretariat to get this together. So we have scenario notes for the negotiation for the second WEG, and we have background documents on operating principles, mapping of capacity building activities in the chemicals, waste, and pollution space, background document on institutional arrangements of existing science policy panel. And if you go to either one of them, you will see that there are like a huge amount of information. Like, for example, this particular document is 45 page, and there are a lot of information that is very well needed to we explained earlier about the different existing science policy panels, but then you can also learn more about the aspects of the existing and institutional arrangements for those panels and how we can get the best out of the best. So there's the IPCC and the other institutional arrangements and all the information needed. But again, those are not something that to be negotiated, but rather those are informing the negotiations. And moving forward with the INF documents, we have background documents on relationship between the panel and relevant key stakeholder, and another document on the process for determining and executing the work program of the panel, background document on the arrangements for identifying, engaging with experts to contribute to the work, addressing potential conflict of interests, which is one of the important issues and points to follow and to address, summary and analysis submission received on needs and question, some sort of synthesis documents on the second submission, and draft text for proposal. That's INF document 10. And I would assure you that there will be a lot of mentioning for this document, a lot of references. Just what we had in the morning plenary, people already started to mention it multiple times. So it's also important to go through this particular 10-page document, around 10 page, to go through this. And then the last thing is about the procedure for elections. There are still vacancies in the Bureau. So to get the full officers elected, that's one of the objectives to be, done during this session. So also, if you go back to this official website, that one I was just in the second session page. But if you go to if you are interested to get more into the background and more information, then we can go to the main website, where there are a lot of useful resources, information about the previous meetings, regional meetings, and then we have webinar series that has been put together by the Secretariat. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of information are there in details, addressing existing panels, addressing a lot of aspects, even addressing stakeholder engagements and the potential options for that. We also have the written submission. So if you go to the written submission, then we will see all the ongoing, all the submissions that has been taking place during the second intersessional period between Bangkok meeting up to now. So the operating principles and the needs and questions. So if you feel that you are interested to get more insights about member states or stakeholder submissions, then you can just go through them and see what are they saying and all that aspects to get a better understanding and a bigger image. So yeah, if you guys have any question. I see no hands raised, but I see that I see in the chat. All right, in the chat, Somo has written, secondly, nations, mainly in the Global South, have raised concerns about inequality, bias, and transparency issue in existing MAAs and frameworks. particularly those regarding climate change, greenhouse gas emissions, chemical waste, and nitrogen, and equality in economic incentives such as biodiversity offsetting, carbon markets, and climate finance. What role does CYMG to UNEP play in improving a fair and equitable policy framework for all, including an examination into existing policy frameworks? That's a very interesting question. It would be very nice to have this question also during the dialogue, but we can start to touch on it. I can give it a shot and then give the mic for Zuhair if you have anything to add. I mean, when it comes to improving the fair and equitable policy framework, the main effort, I would say, that is that we are trying to first get together, and second, get the needed information, and third, join the substantive discussions. So trying to, if we are really feeling that these information these topics are not addressed enough, then we can bring it up to the table. So I would say more into utilizing every single second that we get in any intervention possible. Going further, the activism, which is very great, but going further, including the advocacy aspects, but also adding to the technical expertise. So combining the youth enthusiasm, combining the energy, the optimisms, and then demanding for greener future, sustainable future, but also including these aspects of based on scientific understanding. And that's why it's very crucial to understand the existing panels, to understand how to read the reports. So if you have the interest, then I know sometimes the reading IPCC report or going through GU report and the publication, navigating over 5,000 page sounds very overwhelming. But the thing is, there are some resources addressing. For example, GU6, they have GU6 for youth. So it's some sort of a simplified version for the Global Environment Outlook that was published in 2019, but more speaking to the youth and addressing what has been discussed and assessing the environmental status in terms of youth aspects. So yeah, that's, I would say, very crucial to practice and to enhance and enrich the policy frameworks. Zuhair, if you have anything to add.
Yes, I mean, I found this question very interesting, how we can play a role, and I mean, how we can make sure that the MEAs and the existing ones and the future ones are, built on the legal principles. So one of the thing that we're trying hardly to utilize every second we get, every intervention opportunity we somehow get as a major group, to collect your perception on it and then provide inputs to the policy making. Not just that, we also try to organize bilaterals, with different parties or members, during these negotiations, and push our agenda through those bilaterals. Obviously, there's one thing that we always need to remind, that a lot of actions, for implementing a lot of actions, we don't need to wait for MEAs. We don't need to wait for frameworks. We can do it in person. Even you can see how young the entire young population, such a big population worldwide, more than 60% of the global population. If every single youth does plant a single tree, then how many trees will be planted a single day? You can imagine the power of youth that could be utilized. But I understand it is an ideal situation where member states can utilize this power. But sometimes, when we don't have that support, what we could do, this is our world, we inherit this, we have to do whatever we can do for us, the best for us and the future generations. Secondly, a lot of the policy positions are prepared well before the negotiations start. And when member states, they negotiate on ground for different meetings, they cannot go beyond their policy positions, because the representatives here, they are not somehow always the decision makers. They're somehow the representative of their government, but the decisions are kind of made within your government system by the ministers or high-level people inside the government. Sometimes businesses, where businesses influence the politics in different countries, even in my country, we can see like huge influence of businesses in the politics, in the parliaments. We see a lot of business persons there. They say a lot of good work that they will do. They'll be more responsible, but that came out that this is just nothing but greenwashing in most of the cases. So yeah, you utilize your voice, utilize your power back in your country, connect with your government, relevant departments, provide your inputs to them, because before they come to these processes, they prepare their positions. So utilize that opportunity. We always don't need to be in the negotiations. You know, in some of the meetings, like for the climate negotiation, we cannot say that young people are underrepresented there. They're well represented there, even more than any other groups. A lot of young people, I mean, this is also kind of a, for us, I mean, kind of a depressing matter for us who are engaged in the pollution, who are engaged on the other matters, biodiversity. We're getting less focus in media, in different other UN entities. All the UN entities, they provide support to go to the climate COP. They support a lot of young people, no matter what. But they don't support people to come into the plastics. They don't support people to come into the, chemicals. So where we actually choke with the bottleneck of, having limited resources, these are the crises. But yeah, what we can do to utilize the best resources that we have, the Secretariat perhaps can fund 2, 4, 3 people to make sure that they are representing not just themselves or the group. That's what we do through the Chemicals and Waste Youth Working Group. We collected your inputs. We made sure that those are mentioned in the written submission. And that's why we are having this meeting, to capture your voice and then provide through the interventions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zuhair. I see Yazan, hand is raised. Yes, feel free.
Thank you, Phil. And I also I echo your what you said about the importance of going beyond activism and advocacy to engage with negotiations, and I think an additional importance would also be needed on simplifying those statements for unexperienced young people as well, in terms of like using knowledge sharing tools to inform young people from most affected areas about the science behind and science and conventions behind about the crisis that they are getting, that they are affected by, and therefore pulling them into the discussion and encouraging them to engage more with those processes without digging into the 5,000 pages document. So like just highlighting the importance also of using knowledge sharing tools to inform young people who aren't in the space as well about the work that's happening in these areas.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Yazan. And well, one thing to add here before going to the next agenda item, and the next agenda item is one of the exercise that we can start doing and implement what we are discussing now about. Is now we're going through the documents and we're trying to collect input, and that's also a space that we can collect different perspectives. Your point is very important to showcase the most affected area, to the places that are most vulnerable for these, because once a crisis has started in a place, the focus would be more in the humanitarian aspect, but there are a lot of things coming. There are a lot of climate mobility going on. There are a lot of people, when they're displaced, they face a lot of health, chemical related issues. Waste management will not be in the table. The focus will be more on focusing on providing aid and food and shelter, but those things might be useless if they are exposed to poison, exposed to hazardous waste and a lot of intensive pollution. So it's very important to include these elements. Got one question on the chat talking about how can we implement these aspects practically at a country level. and what official framework are we going to adopt in implementing these modalities as CYMG members, aside our respective activities. As Zuhair just mentioned, I mean, we have the platform. We are trying to improve. We are trying to improve our coordination and our collective and mutual efforts to achieve the goal that at the end of the day, we all aim to prevent chemical waste and pollution impacts on planet Earth, on most vulnerable communities, on youth, children, women. And so to make sure that we would one thing I would encourage is to get active, to get the basic necessary information, backgrounds, educate yourself. Now we are like in the era of information. AI could help. Go and have a very lovely conversation chat with ChatGPT for like 30 minutes and ask questions. I mean, now everything is even easier. We reach to a point that we're just one click away by Google and by the search engines and, the advancements of technology, but now it's even getting more. So the access to information is easy. Now you can ask the existing, AI tools to summarize 5,000 page, and you can get the input and very in a matter of few seconds, but also bearing in mind that some information might be not yet. They are still in the training period of these models, but it's what I'm trying to say is like utilize all the existing technology, utilize everything possible to learn, and then start led by example as a youth activist, as a youth leader in your community, start to educate others, and then we can go beyond that. I mean, it's every single action is very influencing. Do not underestimate. Even if you go through the IPCC synthesis report, they emphasized a lot on the behavioral change, on the social aspects, on the individual actions. And now most of the organizations and bodies interested in sustainability and environmental protection and everything, they're focusing a lot on these. I mean, going through a very important issues, Scope 3 emission, and those are, heavily and intensive industries are very crucial, but we might feel that we don't have the capacity and the tool to stop emissions and to stop, big companies in continuing polluting the environments. But what we can do is we can work from, the bottom-up approach. We can also do our best to do that. Yeah, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Sales, for that. My name is John. I first of all want to thank CYMG for having us here, and also for OEWG2 for giving us an opportunity to come and learn. I think I'll base my suggestions on education. We need a lot of education for our children and youth, because most of the negotiations and also policies that are being made and also discussed talk about future years, maybe 2050, 2070. So I think this is the time for the youth to really need to get more technical. And I believe the IPCC and also the scientific panels, I believe that they can offer good education platforms, especially from the maybe question I've had on each country. We can maybe approach the panel in in-person way where they can we can have capacity building with them, trainings for maybe each country. You can even invite them to universities for lectures. So I think the education bit about plastics it's more technical than we think, and I think one of my agendas here is to learn more about the technicality in this, because in future the scientific panels will need maybe the youth to be there. So I think the education part needs us to approach the panels in person and also contribute maybe in each of our countries in the education sector. Thank you.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, just one last point. Before that, our colleagues who are joining online, if you'd like to jump into the conversation, please feel free to raise your hand and join. So one last thing one point that I forgot to highlight is it's more like two ways communication. I mean, if we are demanding something from the existing panels and demanding from our own countries, from member states, from existing, UN entities and all major stakeholders, it's more like we really need to show interest that we are serious by being engaged in fully prepared. We do our homework and then we join. And this is what I have been seeing improving by the time. If we reflect back a year or a couple ago, the way that we come prepared and the way we focus on the intersessional period, not only the meeting itself and being prepared somehow or the other, of course, there are a lot of rooms to be improved, but it's a good starting point to build upon that. And now let's very quickly discuss on how we can do the agenda item 6. Every suggestion is welcomed. Initially, we had a plan to do some sort of different groups. I'll tell you the objective, and then we can plan and see how we be creative about this. We are having around 1 hour and 10 minutes, and then we will be preparing the intergenerational dialogue at 4:20 Nairobi time. So what we need is we need to go through the documents together and try to somehow prepare. If you haven't done so, we can go together and navigate. And now the floor is open for any suggestions, how we can work this out with our online participants. A lot of options. We might have 3 breakout groups here and online, or we can have it as 1 by 1. So I am opening the floor for any suggestion. Right. Then what I can suggest is we will perhaps, let me propose something. We will have 2 different breakouts, and we will be joining for the colleagues are in person. We will be joining with 1 laptop. So our online colleagues can also have the interaction. And then we can go through 6A and 6B within the coming 30 minutes. And then if we have the last 10 minutes to go through 6C. Just as I mentioned, we do not need to go through the text line by line. It's just more get familiarized with the text. You will learn more about during the contact groups. But then let's just go through them and reflect with the priorities that we shared earlier in the previous submissions and the demands about the inclusion, the intergenerational balance, the representation, equity, and conflict of interests and other demands. So yeah, let's create the 2 breakouts and let's split. This side would be one group and the other side would be the others, and 1 laptop will be joining online. Yeah, just let's do the 2 breakout rooms.
Okay, colleagues who are joining online, so we have a suggestion, the suggestion from my side, as because the agenda item here, as you see on the screen, 6A, some of the items of agenda item 6A, scope, objective functions were discussed at WEG 1.2 a lot in contact groups and functions here. And perhaps they're not going to discuss broadly about it again. I mean, they will finalize it maybe, but not, as big as it was in WEG on 1.2. So I propose that we have 2 breakout rooms on 6B and 6C. 6B is the institutional arrangements and relationship with key stakeholders and work-related process and procedures. So that we can do. Okay, I'm breaking out in two. As you can see on the screen, 6B is the institutional arrangements and relationship with key stakeholders, and 6A is the work-related process and procedure. You can join any of the working group of your interest. I'm just creating the breakouts. You're doing it? Okay. Okay, we'll stop the live streaming from now, as because we are going to have deep discussion and we don't want to bring this to you to see, because I think there should be some political comments as well. So we just want to stop live streaming now. We will start live streaming from the agenda item 8, right? What's the agenda item? Yeah, from the agenda item 8, which is the intergenerational dialogue with the chair, principal coordinator, and other respected speakers. So from now, we're going to stop the live streaming. Thank you.